start with timber frame homes since that's we were last talking about that. So when I was in business, I was a log home timber frame home builder, and timber frame home, it's been around for a very long time, even though the joinery may not have been 100%, accurate. So, when you look at these structures here, there are no nails or screws in these structures. They're all held together with pegs. The pegs generally were made from very dense woods like dogwood. We would have used dogwood here in North America, or boxwood, even, what we think about as a hedge. Boxwood is very, very hard, and the pegs go in and hold these structures together. And so, if you wanted to build something like this today, it is a structural nightmare because you're going to have to get a structural engineer involved that's going to know how to run the numbers and everything to prove that it can be done. I usually had a pre package deal that a company had already done, and basically all the drawings and everything, and we just put it together. I have done some different types of joinery just on my own. I built a house, or I redone a house. Let me hang on just a minute. I got a timber. I would do all these cool different timber frame scarf joints and so forth, and they're fun to work. They are hilarious to see some of the people think, oh, this ain't going to work. Yes, it will work. And so this is a Norwegian wedge scarf that uses a peg to lock these in together. And so I did this for a house that I did not want to have a post. And that was one of the big criterias of that. And so I had an engineer go over the scarf, and yes, he assured me that it would be just as strong as the wood around it. But the building inspector at the time, he was old school and he wanted to see it. So basically, I done a scarf joint very much like this, except the top of it was a little bit different. And so it was a little bit more complex, and it was hard as crap to get together. So come on, I got too many things open.
What's usually the tolerance for joints like that? 1/16 of an inch or 32nd? What?
16th if you're good, yeah. 32nd if you're really, really good. So in this particular case, I used a scarf that and I always have a hard time going back and thinking about how this thing is drawn. It's like that, but one more.
Are the scarf joints used to extend the length?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so it was much like that, except I had done a little different joint so that, once this peg is put in, and I'm still not drawing this thing correctly, because when the peg goes in, it pushes it apart and locks it together. Let me draw it out two-dimensional. Maybe I can. I don't know why I'm all of a sudden having a hard time with this stupid thing. I believe that's it. So you put a ledge in here, and it basically pushes these two apart. and locks them together. But then I had this on there as well. And so it's not something that you could just, take a saw to. You're going to have to get a chisel and work it and work it and work it and work it, fit them together, take them apart, and fit it some more. And, until you get it right. It is very time consuming. And so a lot of these that I'm showing you pictures of here, these are probably done with a CNC router. That seems to be the way to go nowadays. Packages such as Hearthstone, and I'm going to talk about Hearthstone some more. Hearthstone Log Homes out of Newport, Tennessee. I used to take a group up there every year, and we would tour the facility, and they were really good about it. There we go, Timberframe. But they have extremely expensive freaking German CNC equipment, and all of this stuff is cut with a CNC router, and it is just phenomenal to watch these machines go to it to cut this out. I mean, basically, it's kind of like just throwing a piece of wood into a machine, and it just takes over and does everything for you. Really, there's no craftsmanship left to, except for putting it together. It's just crazy at how these things are built and cut. And so, even to get this is not bent. This is out of a piece of wood, a straight piece of wood. So you have a lot of waste in a timber frame house, but they're absolutely gorgeous. They've got that nice warmth to them, and just, I mean, it's just crazy at some of the stuff that you can do with these. And again, they're beautiful, beautiful homes. I used a timber frame along with a log design, and so you can do that. It's just endless at the amount of stuff that you can do with these. And even stuff like this, this little curve here, what's the purpose of that? It basically gets rid of some weight. Your strength lies basically here in this, where you've got a compression or a tension. This works in both compression and tension, depending on where your forces are being played there. And it gives the post an extension as well for weight, so that you don't have so much free span there. So dealing with free span on the code, that you're limited with certain things. Now, this, like anything else, this is non-traditional building. Back in the 18th century, in the 19th century, this was common practice, especially in England or just Europe in general. And so that was, if you tried to build a stud 2x4 stud wall, they'd look at you funny and ask questions. So that's what's happening today, is the building inspectors and the code does not really address a timber frame log home, so they consider them non-traditional building. And you have to basically stand on your ear to try to prove to them that it is a suitable building practice, where it's been around very much longer than the 2x4 stud type build. And so a lot of different things can be used to sorry, I can't type and talk at the same time. A lot of different methods were used to do the exterior finishes on them. So you could build these timber frames and then do something in the side of it. And at the time when I was building, Homosote board was a big thing. And I don't even know if you can get it anymore. Well, I guess you can. There it is, Homosote board. This is not what I was looking for. Homosote board at the time was actually like a SIP panel before SIPs came out. And That's not what I'm looking for either. Let me just do SIP. So Homosote is an actual brand name. And so we would use SIP construction. We would use, boards similar to this that was made by the Homosote company and fill in between these places where we had, solid insulation. Now it was a pain in the butt to, to cut some of these things to get this Homosote to work out great. But in the end, you would end up with a very beautiful product with the inside that would look something very much like this. And it's very cool to do. And it's something that I enjoy doing. I just love to get a big old piece of wood and a chisel sometimes and just start playing with it. It's very therapeutic to do stuff like that. So I love it. I just love it. And you end up with that warm, rich appearance, and it adds increased amount of value to your house as well. Even if you did fake beams. I did a house once that we had, the house could stand by itself, but then she wanted this look. So we went through here and done basically fake beams through here and made it look really nice. It was an existing house that we had went back and had renovated. So
Pound for pound, is it as strong as steel?
say it again.
Pound for pound, is it as strong as steel?
Probably pound per pound, yes, I would say so. But what would be an advantage here that is not for metal?
Got to worry about rust.
Okay, rust. Somewhere there's a picture.
Well, you can drill into wood. You don't drill into steel, not without special tools. Oh, I had another question too.
As I was here's that right there explains it all. So this is a steel beam that has reached its maximum temperature and has melted over a wood beam. And I've seen this personally. I was a fireman with the Salem Fire Department when Salem Elementary or Salem Junior High School exploded back in the 80s. And we had steel beams that were melted over and still hanging over a wood beam. So the wood beam is large enough that it can sustain itself through flash fires. So this fire at Salem was a fire that was started by LP gas. What had happened is they had this used to be the high school before the high schools were made, and it was a 3-story building. It was a 3-story building, and it had a basement in it. The basement was the cafeteria. On the top level up here was the science lab, and that's where the little gas burners were. So we had LP gas up here. The tanks were held outside. And so the buses used to go through here to pick up the kids. And some kid had turned this had not been used in 10 years because it was no longer high school. It was a middle school, and they didn't use the science labs as they used to in the high school. So what had happened was some kid was playing with this down here, turned the gas on, which of course these were all probably open anyway because everybody knew that they didn't work. And that gas had went all the way down because it's heavier than air, went all the way down here to the kitchen where the stove was a gas stove, and it had a nice little pilot light down here. And by the time it hit that pilot light, this entire building was filled full of gas. So you can imagine what happened. It wasn't a boom, it was a kaboom. And we ended up finding a lot of the metal just absolutely melted over top of the wood beams because of that flash point. And so that's one of the biggest reasons that, that I push timber frame, versus steel, because of that burn. Because it's not, you just can't just burn right through that in a heartbeat. It takes a while, but once a piece of steel reaches its melting temperature, it's a done deal. Gone, shot.
Like butter.
Like
Was
butter.
anybody in that building?
What's that?
There was anybody in that building when it happened?
No, fortunately there was not anybody, but remember I told you that there was a little road, there's a road through here that the buses went through and picked up kids. Just on the other side of this was the gymnasium, and there was a basketball game going on at the time when it exploded. So most everybody that was in this building ended up with some sort of glass injury, because the front of this was just nothing but glass. And when this building exploded, all of this glass, I'm trying to say, the stadium, the seats, doggone it, were over here on the other side. So all of this glass went straight to them. They had quite a few injuries because of the glass.
Ouch.
Yeah, and there was actually cars parked half a mile away with glass impregnated in their paint.
I'll have to look the story up.
Salem Junior High School explosion in 80. I might have been 1980. I don't know, but 30th anniversary of the high school explosion. So yeah, look it up. They've got some pictures and stuff, and it was pretty cool. This is not it. None of these are it. So actually, that's it right there. No, it's not either. Anyway, yeah, look it up if you want to on your own. Be cool. Any questions about Timberframe? This is a really cool site here that has a whole bunch of different, basically somebody had just drawn up all of these little scarves and joints and stuff in there. They are absolutely beautiful. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on.
TimberframeHQ.com. Builders inspectors, it surprised me. They have to go to school and get certified like every other industry. They got to be taught history. Why in the hell wouldn't they know this is our answer or past stuff? Why they act like it's weird?
Well, they're taught code. They're taught code. Okay, they're not taught history. They're taught code. If it's in the code book, it's law. If it's not in the code book, you hire an engineer. It's that simple.
Damn.
Yep.
That's messed up.
Yep. Okay, so while we're still on this, let's see. Did I lose that? Yes, I did.
All of this timber frame architecture reminds me a lot of Germany, because they have a huge wood resource there. And most of the homes, this is how they're built.
Yeah. Actually, it goes back to Viking technology, believe it or not. Vikings were shipbuilders. So, the scarf joint is used quite extensively in the building of those ships and stuff. And so, when they're reign of terror was over with, they had to become farmers. Basically, they couldn't go out and pillage. So to kind of give you a real quick and dirty Viking history, and you ought to look up if you haven't seen the series Vikings on the History Channel, watch it. Man, it is good. Now it's it's a little raw, but it's a good series, and it kind of shows you historically correct stuff on there. So it talks about clans and how they made their living. They made their living by stealing. They weren't farmers or anything. And so when one of the clans broke off and decided to move to Iceland, then they started really having to get into using resources that they had around them and not trying to invade England and Germany and Russia and all of that. So for a long time, that is how they made their living, was invading the Western countries, Russia and Germany, and then they decided, hey, let's go east and invade England. And they found out that England had a lot more valuables, and France as well. And so they had to build boats to get there. And so that's where their construction sense really came to a head. But after England became strong and kicked their ass, then they had to go back to farming. And so their barns, you've heard of a cantilevered barn. And if you haven't been to Cades Cove, go to Cades Cove. They have some of the most beautiful barns, and this is one of them in Cades Cove. That's not what I wanted to do. Come on. What's that?
Did the Vikings predate the Romans? I don't remember.
No. Romans came first.
Okay.
Yeah, the Vikings somewhere around 1400, something like that.
Okay.
Romans were, AD, BC AD time.
Okay.
So this is a cantilevered barn. This is one beam that is holding this on over here. And the reason that the cantilevered is there was a couple of reasons. Obviously, in Scandinavia, their winters were hell. So not only could they put their tools in here, but their cattle could get in here. They had their hay storages up here, and they could just toss it right down into an open space where their cattle could eat and be covered. They didn't have to go out there and shovel snow and this and that and the other thing. But what I was wanting to say was this is a single beam. It's kind of hard I'm too shaky to draw. But if you look, the distance here and the distance here are quite a bit different. This actually, once it leaves this point here, it starts tapering upward. And that's due to weight. They keep the weight down. The further you get out, the less you're holding up, and you don't have to try to hold this. You don't need as much thick board over here to hold that barn up. But so there's two actual cantilevered barns in Cades Cove. This is the other one. This one is at the trying to think what it's called. It's the homestead. There's a homestead out there that near the visitor center. If you ever go out to the visitor center, this is there. The grist mill is what I'm trying to think of. The grist mill at Cades Cove. And this uses the same principle and you can see that log coming out. Don't worry about this. This is not structural. It's just there that they covered it up so they wouldn't get any air in here or something. You could put a hog in the center section here, and then you had plenty of room for your increments or cattle to get up under here during the winter time in case it snowed. And then that way these are open. These each side here, that one little thing there is driving me nuts. These are open and they can just throw the hay down here in the center, and then the cattle can eat from there. Or they can put them in these, they can throw them in here, and it keeps it up off of the ground. The cattle can still get to the hay here, but they're not tromping over it and making it bad. So there you go. There's and this is a direct descendant from a Norwegian barn. So
It looks like a ship almost.
what's that?
It looks almost like a ship.
Yeah, I can see that. But definitely, using timber frame techniques to put this together for sure. If you ever get a chance, go out there and take a look at it. It's cool. Cades Cove in general is cool. I would suggest going in the off season. This one is at Cherokee. This is at the Oconaluftee Homestead Village in Cherokee. It's just absolute awe. And think that they did not have any gasoline or electrical equipment. They didn't have any cranes. They didn't have any lifts, nothing when they built these. This was all hand, lose a finger, lose an eye, get on with it. There ain't no damn such thing as OSHA. Survival of the fittest, basically, is what this is. So it is. It's a dying art, and it's something that I've studied for years. And I do like the fact that they're actually turning these barns into houses and saving them. Matter of fact, my sister, God rest her soul, she had a barn near her home that was renovated, and I got to take a tour of that. And it just so happened that it was a cantilevered barn. It was built by she lives in Pennsylvania, so it was built by the Pennsylvania Dutch, and which is a German descendant, and was cantilevered, gorgeous. Played hell with the building inspector, trying to let them use it in, as a house. Had to get a structural engineer involved, and the structural engineer came on site and pretty much just laughed at the building inspector. Is like, damn, it's been up here this long, where's it going to go now? So that kind of thing. But that is Timberframe, so definitely look over the Timberframe XQ site. It's really cool. And again, like I say, it's very therapeutic, super therapeutic, just, to get in here and start working with two great big pieces of wood. If you haven't already, we actually, let's see.
How much more expensive than regular construction is it?
Well, if you decide to do this, I'd suggest you do it yourself instead. I mean, it's going to be twice the cost.
Okay.
That's not what I wanted.
I have friends in Flat Rock that have a house built that way, and first time I was in it, I was oohing and ahhing with the pegs, and it's like, it's beautiful, and the energy in there is just awesome.
Well, people in Flat Rock have money to do stuff like that too.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the forest pod that is down behind the maintenance shed on AB Tech property, that it runs around the AB Trek trail. And so my construction 3 students last year, 2 years ago, built this, and there are no nails, no screws in this truss here. It is totally all mortise and tendon and pegs, and they absolutely enjoyed this. These other rafters back here, they are pegged at the top and then screwed in directly across the, down to the wall. But there is no center beam. There's no ridge beam running across through here. And let's see, is there an inside picture? Yeah, there's an inside picture of those beams coming up. And they like I say, they are mortise and tendon joint here with a peg in that, and they are self-supporting. They hold themselves. We actually had this broke into sometime over the year. I don't know when it was broke into, but so we're back. Construction 3 is going to be back working on this semester, and hopefully we can get it completed.
Was it 8x10?
This is 8x8, but this is 8x10. So there's like a 2-foot porch on it.
Mhm.
So this is just 8x8. And it's just going to be for a study room. You can go to the library and check out the keys and go down here and do your work and stuff. That might be something for you. Get out of the classroom a little bit. And there will be Wi-Fi accessibility here as well. So